Stand up next to a mountain, and I knock it down with the edge of my hand. Any more?
Yeah.
I thought you were just
Pick
getting
up the
warmed
pieces
up.
and make an island. Raise up some sand.
There we go. So that's our special guest today, Carlito.
Manny!
Here we are at another podcast, man. We're back
love
at Skylight Studios.
Where's Mark?
He actually, I don't know where he is.
This is the first time he's left early.
No, he's been gone before, man. But we're back here, and we want to just say thank you, Mark, again for giving us a home.
Skylux and Mark, you are amazing. Thanks for supporting and changing the industry every single time we do this.
The whole crew, everybody, you guys have been having a great winter, and hopefully it's going to be an amazing spring and summer. Keep up the great work. We love you guys, and best roofers, give them a call. Now, let's get to the podcast.
Oh, the dirty stuff.
No, not the dirty stuff. This is going to be a really interesting podcast. We have a very special guest. So to the left of me, I have...
Adnan Zabian,
And you are...
modular building engineer.
Modular building
This is
engineer.
interesting.
This is going to be
I like where this is going already.
This is going to be very interesting.
In construction, but out of construction, but in construction.
I'm one of the guys that contractors yell at for not. So
No, you're about what, 6'4"? I'm
6'2", about 280. Yeah, I lift. I hit the bag.
Which contractors are yelling at you, man?
Well, secretly under their breath, I guess.
Oh, okay, all right.
Listen, I won't lie. There's always problems between architects, engineers, and contractors.
Yes, always, absolutely.
Why don't you
That's
tell
part of
us
the
a
job.
little bit about yourself and how you got into the industry and how long you've been at it, and get us up to speed, and then we'll get right into it.
I've been in it altogether for about, I would say, 14 years, split between modular structure engineering and solar energy, alternative energy.
Oh.
Did that for about 7 years, yeah. Solar hot water heating was my forte right
Nice.
out of
Nice.
college. Graduated from Fanshawe College in London, Ontario, my hometown, born and raised. 519, shout out.
The 519, baby.
Nice. But yeah, so I did that, and then I did renewable energy for about 7 years after finishing. And then in my 20s, I moved up to Toronto. I've been living here ever since, more or less.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Coming from London, I
Yeah.
know.
Usually people move from here and go out.
That's what I heard. I loved it. I love it, but I love it here. It's second home.
It's a
Married
beautiful
now, so
city. It is a beautiful
wonderful.
city,
Yeah.
despite all the...
Yeah.
We won't get into that. We don't have time for
Well,
it.
I did a 4-year stint, a volunteer position with the Toronto Planning Review Panel as well. So I got the insider.
How was that?
Dirty
It was
stuff.
good. Yeah, it was good. We went over certain things like the rail deck park, lots of other projects that they want to do, setbacks with condos, and the new regulations and new parks.
Beautiful.
And so yeah, they're going to be doing a lot of really cool things. I hope the rail deck thing happens.
The city needs it to begin with.
Yeah, and Jen Keys, Matt came in, former head of planning. She came in early on, and we met a lot of really good people and a lot of big developer people, and they came in, and also city planning came in and said, here's what we want to do about the Eglinton Crosstown, and here's how we want to do things around the city. So
They just added another delay for the crosstown.
yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's what I hear. Yeah,
I don't get it. I mean,
Hang
like
on. It's the city.
yeah.
but I've seen other cities pull off stuff a lot faster.
For the
Bigger.
listeners, what is
But-
the rail deck?
So the Rail Deck Park is a 20-acre park. Don't quote me. I think it's about that.
Wow,
And
that's
that's
pretty
going
big.
right above where Union Station is and the CN Tower and Ripley's and all that. You got those 8 or 9 rail wide. They're going all the way over, and they're making that into like park with
An urban park.
urban park with
Tent City.
Yeah, more or less.
There's
Yeah.
going to be a
No,
lot of people sleeping in there.
No,
Yeah.
no. That's not
That's
the
what they're
idea of
doing.
it.
So yeah, it should be nice. I think it's a great idea, but I don't know if they're. Last I heard, it was kind of.
It was a budget that I started
Yeah.
hearing a lot of things about the numbers were just getting crazy.
Well, the only thing we really have is like the Don Valley and High Park.
Yes.
We don't have
So we
anything.
need something to represent the city a little bit more.
Absolutely. And my friend used to live on Telegram Muse right by the Rogers Center. Familiar with that area. It needs something because he has to go a little bit of a distance at the time to go to anything close to where he can hike.
It's
or
a sea
do
of
something.
ugliness there. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, trains are
Yeah.
beautiful, but it's just track.
Exactly.
Then you get right into Union Station, and it
Yeah.
does not look. Why can't you just park a park on top of this? Like, why can't you structurally just build it and just
New
do it?
York did
That's
it.
how I think,
New
man.
York was doing it, and New Jersey Jersey's doing
Did
it.
Boston do it, or
Boston did it?
Yeah. So I mean, all these other cities are doing it. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying is Toronto should actually step up and start doing these kinds of things.
So the
man.
hope is they want to increase the tourism and all that behind it, and I'll bring in tourists.
Which it
and-
will. Totally
Well,
it will.
Awesome.
I'm even more interested in the green aspect of it all. Manny always wanted to go to a petting park.
First of all, you're going to learn real quick. A lot of what he says that has my name attached to it is complete fabrication. That's all I'm just letting
No,
you know.
you like that petting park.
That's on King Street on For Your Eyes Only. Okay, that's a different
Oh,
park.
God.
Definitely a petting park.
We won't get there. We won't get there. Let's get back to you. Modular. Let's talk
Yes.
about all this stuff.
Oh, I'm excited about
So what my specialty is, I actually design solutions using offsite modular construction. So it can be made out of wood structure. So what we do is we have, say, a house, for example, and we would reverse engineer it and figure out ways how we can build sections of it in a factory, take it on a float, and then take it out to site and then stack it on the foundation. Doing it that way, that's where a lot of the work camps and construction trailers for the big guys are made that way. Your William Scotsmans, your Atcos, your box modular, I think box modulars. That's more how they do for the fleets, but now they're moving into different methodologies. So, and then the newer stuff also is container conversion. So you get a shipping
love
container and you convert it over into a living space.
Is
And
Toronto embracing that?
Yes, for the reason why is they just passed a bylaw where they're allowing in the alleyways, they're allowing alleyway suites.
All the laneway homes,
Okay,
right?
so-
Yeah, laneway homes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm confused because I'm building a bed and breakfast in Prince Edward County. One of the stipulations for any of the lots is that you have to have a minimum of 1,000 square feet. Like I have 2 shipping containers. They're 50 feet, 8 feet high. And I was looking at originally building a shipping container like bed and breakfast.
Right.
And they said 1,000 square feet. How do you get 1,000 square feet out of that?
Well, there's 2 ways you could do it. You can stack it, or you can just lay it out flat ways. And what you do is you pre-notch the walls, which become your mate walls, are called. So that's where the 2 pieces come together. And you notch out your things, or you can open it right up and run a post like right across, reinforce it, and then you can start going that way. You have your middle center box, which is notched both ways, and then you have your end pieces, and then you would rough in all of your your windows and your facades and however you want it to look. And then usually it's foam insulation with those. Bat is usually more or less just for becomes sound attenuation, but you usually go with foaming on the outside.
The foam doesn't really create a sound issue with it being a container.
No, it doesn't, because what I usually do is I usually go foam on the outside and bat on the inside for that, because it could, but sometimes it's used for a usage where it's not really that big a deal, because it can be used really for anything. People use it for greenhouses. They use them for. I've done that too. You can use that, but I like to use both. And then from there, you can essentially arrange them in the way that you need. You can put it on a block foundation. You can put it on a standard, and then you essentially just start putting it together in sections and ship it out to site. And then you have your stitch lines, which is about 12 inch on either side of where your mate line is, and then you would essentially finish that on site.
So the mate line is what? The mate line is the exterior shell of it that's being connected to another unit?
Yes.
That's the mate line.
It's where they come together.
Got it.
Literally a mate line. It's about 1.5 inches once they're set apart. And then you would use however you attach them. If it's wood frame, you could just bolt them together with a long lag bolt, unbolt it when you're done, lift them out. However, you got to make sure it's pre-notched in certain areas so that you can have a lag bolt there.
Got it.
Because that's your perimeter beam. Sometimes you just set it, and then you would actually, on the outside, if you're doing a skirting on a block foundation, you would just tether it down with duckbills, and then you ratchet it. So what a duckbill is, I don't know if you're familiar with them or not.
No.
So it's like, it literally looks like a duckbill on the bottom, and then it goes into the ground about 3 or 4 feet below the frost line, and then it's attached to airplane cable. Then you got a bracket on the underside of the unit, and then there's an attachment that ratchets it like a strapping for a truck.
And it
you
stays put.
It stays put, no problem. There's helical piles as well.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is that
no.
No. You can use.
Look how excited he got.
Well, you can. Put, a lot of people have been building it.
Excellent.
I wanted to find out how much of the history do you know about what city or country was the first one to actually start using these containers?
As far as I know, Holland.
Holland.
I watched the documentary. I could be wrong on this one, but they've been doing it for a long time because it's very damp. So they had to come up a way where they had a growing population, and they had to actually find a way where they can either submerge them in swampy waters and make a development. They are doing that now. It's fascinating.
Wow.
And the other way is that we got to build them somewhere. It's not a problem, and then we just set them into place. So
There's enough factories in Toronto.
yeah, there's a lot you can do.
Yeah. So all the people that I know that are really into this, because I'm following so many shipping container builders.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hipsters.
Yes.
What I'm worried about is we already have an exaggerated cost for living in Toronto, and it's really unreachable for 70% of population. People are overstretching. Are you afraid that bringing these shipping containers into play with homes, it's going to really jack up the price of these houses?
I don't think so. Reason being is because for me, the usage I've always used it for is for that I've designed and engineered is for more commercial based. Anybody from KFC set up a stationary temporary coffee shop to cottages. There's a lot of the residential uses. And in the homes, using it inside of like a dense urban area, I'm looking at it as offering like a low cost alternative.
What are we talking about here? Like the cost of a container is what, about 10 grand?
About $5,000 for a 9.5.
$5,000?
Well,
yeah.
but that's secondhand.
Secondhand,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, but you want to go $10,000 you always want to go new. I've never worked with secondhand. Well, I have, and
Yeah, I don't want to know what's been in the used ones.
you got to produce paperwork saying that you didn't have any food or chemicals stored in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all that.
exactly.
So you always want to go new. You always want to go with the 9.5 footers.
Okay.
What do you mean? The ones from China? They're not.
Don't. You figure I would have been the guy to bring that? No, I'm not going to talk about
Call
that.
me
I will
Don.
think. Reason why I'm happy with it because you got to have your room for your ductwork. I'd rather go up top with my ductwork than out of the floor with those because it stays in the insulated space, so you don't have to insulate the duct more than 10 feet as it gets into the unit. And also, you have a return air plenum wall, so it's less return duct, and it's not going to reduce your headspace too much. So if you go to 8-footer, you got to worry about all of that, and then a guy like me has a hard time walking around it.
Typically, you'd probably go 8 foot high, right?
Finished 7'11".
Finished.
7'11" finished. Yeah.
And what is the thermal break, or the R value of the floor, the walls, and the ceiling? Is it all the same?
No, you would go R12 to R16 on the walls, and then you would go about R30 in the roof and about R20 in the floor. But now the bylaws are different, so I want to go about R50, which is why I do the foaming on the outside. That gets you extra 20. So
How is the city embracing this?
it's slow and steady. Like it's not becoming a boom, but I think it's starting to become. And like a person like me is trying to get the word out more because it's a huge industry, no doubt about that. It's not well known in the urban areas as much it is in the outside. I lived up north of Barrie area where there's a lot of manufacturers up there for about a year and a half, and I just lived up there and I submerged myself in it. And there's a lot of cottages up there that are done in this method, either stick built or SIP panel or. Because the person, they buy the land, they take their life savings or whatever it is, they buy the land, and then they say, okay, well, I need another $500,000 just to put something here. So
True.
They have factories in this area, they build them to suit, they ship them out, and you send them right out, and that's what they do.
Before we get ahead, I actually just want to, if you want to just let our listeners know about your website and how to contact you. You've done a lot of research into this, you work on this, so if
Yes.
someone's interested in getting into this modular section of things,
Sure.
they can contact you. So your information?
My information, I have a website, www.acadmodular.com, ACADMODULAR.com. And my phone number, email, Adnan at acadmodular.com, ADNAN at acadmodular.com. They can get a hold of me.
Perfect. Let's get right back into it.
I'm really interested. What do you guys do about septic and solar and wind? What is the preference, or what's the go-to when you do that? Is it off grid, or do you actually make it connected to?
Well, you
the
can
city?
make it either or. We've done ones where it's connected to the city, where there's two ways to do it. You do your standard meter, electric meter outside. You have your panel on the inside, and you just connect it either from underground, because if you're doing a foundation or a block foundation, you got about 3 feet where you can crawl under and make your connections for your plumbing, your electrical, and it works just normal as any other normal residential
Crawl space,
Yeah,
yeah.
crawl space.
But you still got to keep it heated.
Yeah, well, that's what the insulated skirting. You would do
Got
that.
it.
I'm more of a fan, and they go underneath the frost line too. So I'm more of a fan of actually insulating your piping when it's going through the frost line area, and then you would just make your connection to the drain or septic.
Like, okay, so I'm off grid up north right
Okay.
now. I have solar panels and
Yep.
generators, and I try to stay off the generators. I really try to stay to the battery backup power.
Sure.
But I find that I have a huge rodent problem.
Okay.
Do you see that being a big problem in the shipping containers?
No, because you got exterior insulation and it's a steel structure. You will. So I've seen it sometimes in the wood structure ones if it's open joists. They get in there and then
Eat all your wires and everything else.
So that's why I'd rather keep everything within the structure as much as possible. So you just have your main coming in, your main plumbing connection, your main electrical connection, and your main drain, and you're off and going. So everything stays within the structure. Nothing is really too much done.
Are you living in one yourself?
I'm designing one right now currently. I will be living in one very soon. So right now, our current office is in Brampton, and myself and the other architect, Archi System is what they're called.
Archi System.
Archi System, yeah. They've done lots
Never
of...
heard of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they're a smaller company. I'm partnered with them in doing this. We're looking at actually designing one where that's going to be our next office and just drop it somewhere where it becomes like a showpiece.
How big are you guys going to make this one?
Probably 3,000 square feet, but it'll be like kind of a 2-story, kind of a funky thing, like 4 wide and 2 up top, but a little area. So
how many containers are we talking about?
4 wide on the bottom, 6, and then you have your stairs where you turn one sideways, a 20-footer sideways, which is why I like to go with 9.5 feet because it lines up with the height. And you have your staircase on the outside, and then you have your boardroom up top, and then your offices on the bottom. Looking forward to it. So
is the idea that you take each container, so you've got 4 on the bottom there, are you cutting the openings that are going to be connected to each other beforehand?
Yes, beforehand.
And then you're duck billing them together, connecting them, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Got it.
everything is done essentially in the plant. So the only thing that gets done, and everything gets a CSA designation number. So Intertech has consulting companies that certify each unit, and they each have their own number. So what you can do is you can trace back the number of who worked on it, when it was worked on, and what is it. So essentially, that makes it equal to buying a refrigerator or any appliance. So the OBC...
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So with building code, people ask, what do you do about the inspections and building codes? And I said, well, it's CSA. It's above and beyond, in certain cases, what the current OBC standards are. So you go from your foundation sign off to your final occupancy essentially in one swoop. But along the way, you submit with the rest of your design drawings like any other thing. You get your permit based on that. They approve it. They go through all the process. It's an alternative way to build something. It's not something extremely revolutionary where let's see what happens kind of thing. It's been being done for a long time now. I'm trying to get it more to a broader audience instead of just...
So how do we do that? How do we get the audience to kind of embrace this? Because the one thing I think that I see a lot of, to use his word, because I didn't realize that we're still using the word hipsters.
Yeah.
Do they still exist?
Well, I call anything that's...
Anything.
What I think a hipster is somebody that's, artsy, fartsy, and they just want something new and modern or different. And they're not buying it for the purposes of having a smaller home, more simple life, off grid. They're just looking to be cool and modern, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so send your emails to Carlito, not me. That's all I'm going to say. But I could see these people, this group of individuals, not being all that attractive with the exterior.
Well, to get around that, I actually work my design around where it can look like a traditional house or it's a super modern, really attractive looking house.
So you can still clad it, like really? So maybe you can even use like an ACM, you can use any kind of cladding.
Any kind of cladding. You just strap it and then you do your foaming flush with the strapping on the outside of it. And then you would essentially you clad it from there, whatever you want to clad it. I haven't done brick strictly because when you're transporting it, it's a little brittle.
Yeah.
So any brick facade has been done on site. So other than that, you can pretty much clad it with whatever.
And it's not going to look like a shipping container.
No.
And the reason that we're doing all this is because it actually builds a lot faster. And your budget is a lot less.
It can be. When you're dealing with the stick built, what I've seen, I just want to use realistic numbers. I've seen a 10 to 15% overall savings on your build cost with a stick built unit, meaning that's where you build it stick frame, but in a plant, and then you put them together. With the shipping container, I've seen a little bit more, but then there's the argument where they say, okay, well, my material cost has gone up. Where's my savings? Well, the saving is time and your labor on site. So overall, you're going to be saving maybe 20% on your shipping container costs, depending on if you build a big monstrosity, it's going to get expensive. For me, that's what I'm doing, and what my company is doing is we're actually developing a set product line with a set price. So it gives you an idea. So we're going to have a model for a self-powered container for remote living. It's kind of off the shelf, kind of just you buy it. We're going to have a product line, and then you kind of take a look at that, and then it's already pre-priced and you get an idea, and then you say, okay, you get a delivery in 4 to 6 weeks.
And you could build it faster because you're building it inside, controlled
Inside.
environment.
That's right.
And then you're shipping it to the location and dropping it onto piers or whatever you're going to
Yep.
set up for your foundation.
Yep.
Like it would build faster.
It would build faster.
I kind of disagree with that. When I was in New Orleans, I worked for Brad Pitt for a few months.
Okay.
And we had like 8 developers there, or eight groups of people building for the community of the Lower Ninth. We were building a stick framed house. Everybody else did modular. By the time we got to the second floor, they were just starting to deliver these houses, and we actually beat them on our building a stick home versus the modular. Where do you think they went wrong, and why that wasn't faster than it should have been?
You can't do it for every single usage to get and guarantee that it's going to take less time. Where it works the best is where something is designed for it. I looked at a set of proposal drawings for the UTM building. One thing is they did an alternative for modular structure, and they did it where it was made for it. So they had the exterior skeleton get erected, and then they start inserting them pre-made. Timeline, I'm not sure if it was going to take less time than stick built. So I just looked at what that was, and I just kind of did like a consultancy kind of thing, and with one of the manufacturers that was bidding on it, kind of did a consultancy thing with them, and I said, look, I don't think you can beat what the traditional build is. You can try to pick up that, because that's where your biggest source of cost savings is. What I found where it works the best, the purposes, was sales offices. I've done 4 of those. For the home builders, they have a subdivision, and they just need that one worked really well. Food trucks, small living houses, additions worked really good. But when you're going back to your New Orleans thing here, is probably the design was preset towards something that wasn't ideal for it. So you had some jogs in the walls. You probably had a lot of open areas. Was it or no?
I didn't go into
2 stories.
their homes. I only got to see them from the outside and while they
Right.
were being connected. But I was
Right.
so busy building the house that we were building,
Yeah.
right?
Well, your house was what, a 2-story that you were building?
It was a 2-story on
Right.
stilts. So we were like 12 feet off the ground, and
Right.
then it was 2 stories, and then a massive 9 different angled roof ridge. It's to catch solar.
That's probably what the source was, is that there was other aspects that caused a little bit of a delay, which is probably what made it quicker. Like, what's the big thing with me is I'm always like that, is it's going to take longer. I tell them it's going to take longer. So in that case, that's probably what I can think is what it was.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of asking that because when we showed up there, I've never been around that. I've always heard about it. We were serious about being down there helping out, but even more that we were really good tradespeople. I was scared that they were going to blow us out of the water because it could have been assembled 3 months before we even showed up.
True.
They could have just been dropping them into place, right?
True, yeah.
So why are people drawn to that then?
To doing it modular?
To modular, yeah.
Well, what they do is, one of the things is it can be done faster if you do it in the method that they've done them out west in Alberta. So what they do is they actually set up a temporary plant 2 kilometers away from the site, and you just crank them out and set them into place. So that's one of the ways where it works. So these were probably done in like Wisconsin and driven down across the country too. So that could be something that might have cut some stuff down, or logistics. Or I like to keep things where my recommendation is, if you're going to do enough of these units, from what I've seen is they set up a temporary plant there, and they get the area CSA certified, and then they go and they're within a certain area range, and then they have their floats, they have their trucks and everything there, just doing it for them, and then they're just sending it out. So that's what gets drawn what gets drawn to them with the custom home stuff. If you're talking large scale, you got to have a plant right there next to where the development is for this to work time-wise.
What is the largest home you could build in modular?
Ones that I've seen, I've done little micro factories for cultivation. That one wing was about like a dozen long, another one the other way, and had about 20 going the other way. It was like a T-shape.
Whoa.
And then you had a little lobby, and then there was a raised lobby. It was for, they didn't go ahead with it. I just did the design for it, but it was for a person that was doing legalization product. And it was
a lot of that now.
Yeah.
Wait, we're talking about weed.
No, but serious. How many people are investing in that? How many people are making millions? And it's a great point that you're bringing. Maybe investors, they hear this, they'll want to do that because building a factory is pretty hard.
And the thing is with that is that you can guarantee the cleanliness of it because it's all done internally. It's not stick built, and they can start growing right then. There's one that did micro factories. I've done ones that are small 20 footers where somebody just wants to grow in their backyard. I've done lots of stuff.
Cool.
I just drew it out, and they guide it. They do everything, and That's what they do, and it works.
So what's the size of the $5,000 one?
5,001 is the typical size, which is about 40 feet long by 8 foot wide by 9.5 tall.
That's what a container costs. $5,000.
I've gotten quotes for $5,000 at Toronto.
That's
yeah.
cheap.
That
So-
sounds cheap.
second-
So for me,
Secondhand.
yeah. So for me, I had a choice to buy a 25-year. It will last for 25 years, or it will last for 10 years, or 5. I chose for 5 because I was putting my farm equipment into it, so I didn't
Right.
really care.
That's right.
And I've had it for years. And honestly, I don't care how long it's been at sea. If they say 5 years, the life expectancy is already passed, and I'm still like surprised. There's no rust on it except for the doors where the hinges are. And a home like that you're building,
You're gonna get rid of those doors.
Yeah, you're gonna
We
tear
can
it
get
off
rid of the
anyway.
doors. Yeah.
I could see
Yeah, they
this
get
like
cleaned out.
you can buy some property up north and get a cottage area, and then get you guys to actually draw it up, and then get 3 or 4 of these containers, modularly built a cottage. 4 units, you're talking about 20 grand. Let's say for argument's sake, 25 grand plus your fees, and then plus the finishing. Or you got to do your installation, you got to run all your rough, and you got to do all your finishing from there.
Yeah.
It's still a far cry from some of the cottages that we know that are basically second homes for people that become $200 a square foot, and you're still paying 300 grand for a cottage, right?
And it can look really nice. They really can. If you do it properly, I've seen ones that look really nice. And I've had have somebody, a friend of mine, he's looking at putting them on his property where he's doing like a little resort kind of thing.
Love it.
And he's doing an L shape, and little L-shaped little hotel rooms. And
I like
they're
the
all
U's
staggered.
myself.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
U shape too. I like that one
Little
too. So-
pool in the middle.
Yeah, it's neat. I love those ones. They're doing it, and they look really nice. And what they do is at the 2 ends, that's the door end of it. That's facing the water. You take the doors off. Then you put in your basically full window and a full sliding door. Keep the doors open, right? And then you build a roof on that, and then you have an enclosed kind of privacy kind of balcony kind of thing.
And pretty much they are bulletproof.
Yes.
But I've seen guys like I know guys that have cottages and they have these, they just close these big steel doors and no weather can smash windows, get in.
Nothing. You don't have to
One of
worry
my
about any
favorite
that.
is actually the H. When they put the middle part for the H, you can actually drive under it like
Oh, okay.
a roof.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you could drive your car underneath.
Oh, okay. It goes on top the other way.
Yeah,
it's
it looks
neat.
really cool. If I was, say, in my 30s and me and my girlfriend wanted not to build a traditional home.
You're married, by the way, huh?
Yeah. No, my wife's totally into this. I'm almost 50, man. And
Really?
yeah.
Oh,
and
geez.
my
Okay.
wife
Good.
is totally into this.
Yeah.
And I won't lie. Like if you look at my Instagram, a lot of it is shipping containers. I'm very drawn to it. I like the look. I don't think the trick is to make it look like a home. It really needs to have that modern shipping container look.
Yes.
That's the cool look.
Yes.
Like when you buy a shipping container, you want a shipping container. There's cool things you can do to it, but you want to
Yes.
keep it modern.
And I'm a big fan of designing around what it is. That's the best way to do it. I've had many times home builders have come to me and said, well, I did this one last year. Do a little design, do a price for it, and let me see. And I would tell them after a while, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to beat your price. You got a system set into place. You got all that. It can be done. I'd rather what I learned is push like what you're saying is just, this is what it is. It's a modified shipping container. They look great. Here are the uses for it where it would be best. And then you got also different things. You got SIP panels, collapsible structures.
And what's that?
Okay, so this one is like my real pet project. So there's a little story behind it. So I'm about 2016. So 2016, I went back to Lebanon. So my parents have a house there and all that. So I went back. And I was driving with my cousin. We were going into the areas and a place called the Bekaa Valley, which is where a lot of the Syrian refugees came over. So I was driving by one of the areas, and then I see the conditions and how it's lack thereof and how they're living and all that, and then start thinking and you read the news and everything, and you start looking at everything, and then it kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was like, why don't I just come up with like a collapsible structure for something like this? You know what I mean? Any use. It's not just that. It could be for disaster areas. It could be for, like, say, Australia, for example, had that huge fire or whatever. It could be something that you can set it up within a day or two, and then they have some place that's solid. It's, you're not going to, it can hold stuff. People can live in it for a little while. It's not going to be the Ritz-Carlton, but it's going to be something that's stable and safe and has a locking door and self-powered and So I started kind of getting into that. So they're out there, but one of the things that we're developing, and I'm working with an organization called ITTS Foundations.
What's that stand for?
I talk to strangers. It's an interesting.
I talk to strangers.
Yeah. The
Okay.
founder.
I like where this is going.
It's pretty neat. So the founder, his name is. I was just talking to him today. Actually, I told him I was doing a podcast. His name is Robbie
Okay.
Stokes. So the founder of this thing worked for the Obama administration, and he did certain things. And he through his experience, he went to Florida State, worked at NASA, the whole deal. And he's like 2 years younger than me. I'm 35, so he's 33.
I wish I was.
He's a brilliant guy. So he started a not-for-profit foundation, and then basically what it was is that he's trying to go back to essentially getting back to communication like how we're talking right now. And he works with kids with different type of purposes. And one of the things, he was in South Sudan and Juba and all these other crazy places. And I met him through a mutual friend of ours. We got together and we've been working together on developing this. So we're hopefully getting close to actually having it's called a mobile bus, like a classroom bus thing. So we're going to be...
It's a temporary kind of structure?
Yeah, it's a temporary pop-up schools where you can go from town to town.
Cool.
And, he was in Puerto Vallarta last week, and he was there for months, and we're trying to develop something down there where it's solar-powered, solar hot water heating. So you come in, you pop up, you teach the kids, you do whatever usage you want to do, and then you pack it up and you keep going. So
Bring it to the next location.
for the next location. Yeah.
And I love that because I'm a real true believer. This is politics, of course, but I really believe that you have to fix the problem where it is. You can't fix it somewhere else. So
Yeah.
it's great that you guys are doing that. You guys are going to their location and educating them, teaching them to fix the problem there.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And the best thing with this is that we want to basically, one of the things he wants to teach them is certain things. We teach them a trade, teach them how to basically build something, what they have before the stuff even gets there. It's really interesting. I've known him for a few years now, and he's going to be here next month. If you ever want to get somebody on, you can talk to this guy for
Sure.
Definitely.
We love talking.
Yeah. If you ever want to come on, he's a very interesting guy.
So these units, you guys are calling them, what was the project again? You labeled
What did he call it again? The like the mobile classroom bus project. Yeah, mobile bus, something like that. I don't want to.
So you're taking a shipping container, converting it, and then it's able to actually just drop right onto the grade or the soil there, or you actually still peel?
In this case, we're going to do it where we're going to modify it so it can be pulled, where they can actually go into, essentially, it can pop up and be collapsed and go into something like a truck. That's what we're trying to figure out now. Flatbed or whatever they have there, and then it can go from town to town and place to place.
So when you're saying collapse, are you talking about the actual walls? Or?
Yeah, you take the thing apart, you lay them down in like 4x8 sheets and slide them, and that's one of the things.
Or even easier, just jack it up, put some axles under it.
and
That's
take
what I
it to
did
the
at my
next place.
farm.
You could do that too.
Yeah, so I took an I-beam, welded 2 hubs on, grabbed the backhoe and the bulldozer, and we put one end wheels and just put it into place and then dropped it down. It was great.
That's one of the things I'd like to do, but one of the things that is limited is down in Mexico, for example. It might be a little bit harder to do that when you're driving on the side of a cliff. He showed me some of the videos he's done. I'm like, okay, well, let's try to figure this out then, because I don't want the thing to roll down a hill.
Just
right?
access to get to where you got to get to.
So we got to think lighter than that. But if we're talking North America, it's ideal. But over there, he's just describing, he goes, picture you need to get into the middle of a field where there's barely any road. So we got, it's a
Can't airlift it or anything like that?
You can airlift them too. That's one thing we're discovering. It depends on, we're looking at all type of ways to move these things. So one of the things that that we're developing is like an interlocking core structure, and then you fill it in and it's slotted with SIP panels. So it can either be airlifted. If you need to tear it down and move it somewhere, you can do that. And then the bed of it is actually something that actually attaches to the bus or something that's pulling it to another town. So it's again challenging, but
are you getting some resistance from the government, or
I haven't gotten that far with it.
Or do you need permission to
for what we're doing? No, he was down there for months, and
go figure. Eh? Do you need permission to help people?
Yeah,
Yes.
Sometimes you do, but sometimes you do it in terms of with something like this. No, he was, from what he's done, he hasn't had much problems, but we're working together. He said, "You do what you do." He's more of that. diplomacy kind of person. So he did a TED talk as well and all that. So
Oh, wow.
so that's his thing. So
He's opening up the doors.
yeah. So to me, it's an interesting thing. We're working on it for a little while. So I'm like, this fits right with what I want to do anyway. So this came around the same time as when I came back from that trip. So I was kind of like, well, this is really interesting, and I've been rolling. This has been my passion project on the side from what I do professionally, basically.
Another thing I love about shipping containers, you can just drop this thing off, and even if you don't get to building it, it's still waterproof.
Yes.
It's still structural.
Yep.
And it's still usable. I have a couple barns I've built and some large sheds for my gardening and so on. I find that when I'm in the metal shipping container, it conducts less than the actual wood structures I've built. So I find that when I'm in not that I hang out in cold spaces or warm zones, but when I'm in an attic, I always find that it's radiating heat or really cold. And I find when I go in the shipping container, it's not that bad. It's pretty neutral almost. It's very comforting.
It has some thermal value, but more or less it's just because it's so airtight, more or less.
That's the only problem.
That's what
Don't
makes
put any gas in your containers.
Yeah. Be very careful with that.
It'll be bad. I don't think I've ever been inside a container.
Come to my place.
Yeah,
No,
it's interesting.
No, thank you. No, that's not true. That's not true. I think I've been in some of the designer containers, some of the ones that have been like.
There's stacked. There's a company that did the stacked market. They're down by Lakeshore.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, it
And
looks
I-
so
and-
sick.
And
It
I've
looks
walked
amazing.
in it.
I ride
Yeah.
my bike by there all the time
Isn't
when
that
we
incredible?
go along the lake.
Just incredible.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it. And I talked actually when at one of our TPRP meetings, the city councilor that actually one of the people that approved that market was there.
It's so cool.
So I kind of pulled him to the side when he was done. I'm like, hey. So I walked through. It's such an incredible
It's
place.
so interesting to see that there's so many great restaurants in Toronto, and you could go there, and everyone's sitting on the grass. Everyone's sitting it's so hipster. It's
amazing,
and I shouldn't say hipster, more like hippie.
Yeah.
Like everybody's
Hippie.
it's very friendly.
It is. It's
Everybody's
really cool.
interested in
Little
each
shops.
other. It's really
little
cool.
restaurants, little bar, little microbreweries.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting place.
It's
In
a
the
great
summertime,
vibe.
amazing. Yeah, in the summertime, it's nice.
Why aren't we building more of those in other bigger urban cities that are?
That's a good question. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that out there. But from what I know, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Why it's not being done more of? It's starting to, I think, get there because, like we were saying, materials cost has gone up too.
Yeah.
So people are starting to kind of think, how do we build faster? Population's growing. In my home city, London, for the first time in 30 years, there's been the lowest vacancy rate.
In London,
In London.
Ontario.
Yeah,
Wow.
it broke 400,000 when I was born and raised. There was 331,000, and then
So everyone's been leaving.
People have been leaving. People have been selling here or selling wherever else, and because you sell something for 600 grand here, you can buy a mansion in London. So people are just doing that.
I've heard of people doing that with Bradford.
Bradford, yeah, that's been
Oshawa,
Yeah.
Kingston,
Durham, all that.
Belleville.
Well,
Yeah,
'cause
Richmond
it's
Hill,
insane, right? So
Aurora. So London's starting to get big. Cambridge has been doing that. That's been getting trendy. So the cost of that went up, but the average household income isn't as much as it is in the GTA. So they're looking at different ways to come up with quick ways to rent out units. I got a general contractor that I do work for. They're called Level Contracting in London. They're a great group of guys. So they have two properties where they want to do that. They want to do a rental suite on, but again, it's they're interested in doing additions with these things. We're kind of at a spot where I'm kind of giving them options, and then they're going to actually look into actually doing this and going for it because now there's a demand for it like crazy there, and other cities too. So it's starting to get there. Because there's not enough people doing the builds, materials are expensive, and so it's getting a little.
we
bit
should
interesting.
be embracing new ways of doing things, right?
Yeah, and it's a
I
good
don't know why
way.
we're
It's not
not.
like anything's too revolutionary. It's just
No.
you're
I
just
think
changing
everyone's.
the method.
I think everyone's sick of cookie cutters.
Yes.
They all look the same.
Yes.
You don't even know which one's your house. Is that my house?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it's true. It's true.
Have you done anything? Whenever I talk to my buddies about this, and this comes up all the time, we talk about shipping containers all the time.
Okay.
Like my group of
Interesting.
friends is always talking about shipping containers.
Awesome.
They all want to get a cottage. They want to do shipping.
Yeah.
This is a big thing.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really growing.
I love it. Yeah.
But we always make jokes, but they're serious. There's always some truth in some jokes or in comments. They always want to go underground with these. What
Yes.
are the pros and cons, or is it not even realistic?
There's pros and cons because it doubles as foundation, more or less. So what you do is you put your normal helical piles and your normal block pads and everything you need to do. Then you set it, you submerge it, and then you get a basement out of it without having to shell out all that money for a foundation. That's the one. You can also people use them as wine cellars. That's
Yeah, you don't need to waterproof it. You don't need to add drainage. You don't need to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, just exterior foaming.
10 years, I have not had
Set it
a
down.
problem with my shipping container.
You parked it on the ground?
It's on the ground. It's a foot off the ground. I have I-beams, and that's basically what it sits on. I didn't do the footings because I wasn't finished with what I wanted to do. I put 2 shipping containers beside each other. I got steel rafters. I put them over top to build an overhead so I could work on my tractors and the backhoe and stuff, right?
Yeah. Where do you live?
Bulletproof. Well, we got a family farm in Tweed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Where's that?
Just north of Belleville.
Okay.
South of 741.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. All
I have
right.
no idea where that is in the world.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. It's nice.
So I got to ask, what is the negative with a shipping container?
The negative. The only one that I can see realistically, it doesn't work for every single thing that people want it to work for. That's the only negative that I could see.
Okay.
From an aesthetic standpoint, or maybe from a costing standpoint. Functionality, I don't really see it because it's the same. Sorry, it's the same, don't put stuff on my hand. It's the same as essentially you're replacing a major factor of traditional building. You're using a different kind of a methodology, different type of material to get you the same outlook of what you want to do. Is it going to do absolutely everything? It can, but you got to work it into the design. That's where I come in.
Personally, I really think that it simplifies your life. It makes it more enjoyable. The less you actually own or have, the more you enjoy life.
Yes.
And I feel like when me and my wife were trying to downsize, we're trying to pretend that we were going to be in like less than 1,000 square feet. And it's almost impossible to imagine that you're going to live in less than 1,000 feet if you're at my age and built up so much garbage.
Yeah. But one of the things actually that I did, actually, I just came up with an idea and I did this. My brother-in-law has a custom cabinetry and millworking business in London. It's named Cedarwood Design. It's in London on Bessemer Road. So essentially what it is I came up with the space-saving solutions. And I kind of worked that into that. So I said, okay, well, here's a bedroom structure where you can get kind of by using a series of moving partitions, it can become a kitchen, it can become a bedroom, it can become whatever you need. And it's been done in RVs like crazy. Yeah. So I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, why not do that inside the containers? It's there. So, and that's one of the things that we've been doing where that's the one thing I want to do is like an introductory model off the shelf is where here's the living unit, it already has all your amenities into it. And if you're looking for something, just a basic thing to live in up north, that's safe, that's warm, that's clean, that's, what you say, bulletproof and all that. It gives you everything you need. And you can live pretty much anywhere and move it wherever you want to move it.
Something really even more important is I've been a trailer park boy for like 20 years plus.
Okay. I'm surprised.
Hi. But different kind of trailer park boy. With a modern twist. I love the off-grid. What I did find is I have a beautiful, beautiful trailer. I have 2 of them, but I have one extremely beautiful. In the winter, my pop-outs, I have to worry about ripping the rubbers, snow and ice built up on it. And the only way to get that space is to have these pop-outs. I really think that if anyone's listening, going to a shipping container, and if you've never had a trailer or lived in something like this, a shipping container is the way to go. Just to have a fireplace in there, not have any maintenance free. Like the headaches of opening with power, awnings and so on. It's just a headache.
And you don't have to worry about snow load. You don't have to worry about any
thermal
wind,
loss.
Thermal loss. You don't have to worry about any of those things, really. As long as you use the right type of heating, because if you just do it with baseboard heating, it'll work, but you just got to insulate it a little heavier. But I've done really fancy ones where they did like a barred unit and they adapted it and they ran ductwork and it was air conditioned and the whole thing. They're loving it. They were just taking it everywhere. And there was a home builder that I did a sales office for. He's here in Toronto. He's a good guy, actually, called Falcon Crest Homes. So what they did, they had a Oshawa development back in 2013. And we did a sales office for them, and they, so once they were done, they sold it to another home builder. They tore it down, took it to
another one,
took it to another site in Alliston, and
just threw it on a flatbed or something.
Yeah, they dismantled it, put the shipping walls into it, and this one was a stick-built one. So it was wood walls with a Q deck, so it was steel and concrete Q deck, and it had interlocking fittings right inside the floor, so it was notched out, and then you would just basically connection points, disconnect them there. move them aside with floats, and then put shipping walls and send it off to the next site. And that's what he did, because 9 times out of 10 they build them and they just leave them there. So he recouped not all of his money, but he recouped some of his money back, and off it went, and he didn't have to worry about what am I going to do with this thing. And it looked really nice. It had raised foyers and little demo areas and all that stuff in it. So.
Have you ever heard of Bunky Co?
Bunky? No.
I actually just submitted my very first quote to assemble a Bunky Co.
What's Bunky?
So a Bunky Co is basically they're building modular units in a warehouse under 106 square feet.
Okay.
That magic number, 106 square feet, is because of building code. You don't require a permit.
But it's 106, and
Yeah.
it's supposed to be 100.
No, 107 is the cutoff.
107 is actual fact.
That's the actual fact. So that's why they're building them 100. So it's Bunky Co. Bunky Bunkie Co. And I actually submitted my quote to assemble this thing, and it's going to get parked in the backyard of a Toronto home. It's one of the first ones that's being put in a Toronto home. And the clients that were interested in this idea, they first looked at shipping containers.
Okay.
They were interested in shipping containers. So he's building this in the backyard because he wants to have, they both work from home. I think they're going to have a second baby. He wants to have a office, but he doesn't want to have it in the house. Right?
That's wicked.
Yeah, nice.
So he wants to park it in the backyard. So he found this company, and it's all made modular, and it's unpacked or disassembled, and then it's shipped to the site, and then you have to reassemble it, kind of like instructions, right?
Yeah.
It uses ACM for the exterior cladding.
I love ACM.
Right,
Oh, okay.
but it could be any kind of cladding.
Okay.
But I like that it's using the minimum size, the maximum size that you're allowed without a building code. The only thing that we require is an ESA code. So we still have to run power to it because they're using a wall-mounted up to minus 35 degree weather heat pump.
Okay.
And AC unit. You still have to insulate it with rock wall, and then you still have to weather tight it, so it's all get blue skin on the outside, right? And then you put the ACM on it.
Yeah.
I found it pretty interesting, but I mean,
Really
if those that's the kind of thing that you could probably get into as well, where
Sure.
you're building containers that are 106 square feet.
Yeah, that'd be nice. 10 by 10.
I really want to say something. If anyone's listening
podcast.
right now, you can't just stick this on a piece of property without a house. You have to have an existing 1,000 square foot home
Sure.
to be able to have any of
Correct.
these structures. Am I not right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So if anyone's listening and they get into fantasy land and they kind of, because I've been there, had all these great ideas that I want to build a couple of these, like 5 or 6 of them, and just have decks connected and kind of keep it
No,
zen.
you can't do that.
You can't do that, but that's coming along. If it's an addition, you can do that, like what you're saying. I don't know if you could, as long as the city approves it. No, like I'm just asking. Like
I've looked into it in Belleville.
Okay.
And they told me, listen, you have to have that 1,000 square footage first, and then you can
Right.
do pretty much anything as long as they're not connected and they
Okay.
don't have footings in the ground. It'd have to be floating.
right.
No,
okay.
that's what I know.
This is so we're parking it on helical piles, right? So I gave them the option. I submitted 2 quotes, one for a concrete pad, one for helical piles, right? And then they can decide. Obviously, the helical piles,
But that's
is cheaper.
removable. So that
it can
doesn't-
be removable
Yeah.
if you want to move it and take it with you. But you're still going to run a 30 amp cable to it to power the heat pump and to power the lighting in there. And that's definitely a market, because I've always been, since day one of being in construction, I felt that sheds to begin with in Canada.
You love sheds.
I hate sheds.
No, you love them.
I can't stand them, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, if you could somehow, I'm just spitballing
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
just
yeah,
throwing
yeah.
stuff at you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to design, I don't know, take one of those containers, chop them in half, chop them in thirds, and then
Yeah.
create these sheds that are almost indestructible compared to the crap that we see at big box stores. I think a lot of people would buy these things and
Yeah.
and gravitate, but I think they will also upgrade to creating like a bunky environment.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I personally would want, if I had kids and I had a wife and I was working from home and I wanted some refuge, I would want to go to the backyard and know that I can go there all year long. I just got to walk through the snow and walk right in, and I'm in a comfortable heating space that's my
Yeah.
own space.
That's right.
What I'm interested in is you're talking about 106 square feet of floor space.
Correct.
Does that change the height structure?
There's,
Well,
there's a limit. Yeah, you know
there
better.
is a limit unless you're zoned for. From what I know, if you have a 2-story, you're zoned for 2-story. So
So you could actually take a
turn it
shipping
right up,
container and
turn
stand it up.
a 20-footer.
I think it's, you correct me, I think it's 10 foot.
well for a shed. I think
The
it's
height.
9'6". I think
Is it 9'6"?
without getting
Yeah.
no 3 meters or something like that.
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, something like that. For a shed to just kind of do it standard. Or after that, you need a variance.
And
but-
so that you probably already know this. You know a ton of shit. You always pretend you're stupid. I just went to the Stevie B concert.
You went to the Stevie B concert.
baby.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
He's
man.
still touring?
Oh, dude, he was great. I got
The
private
first-
pictures. After this, I'll show you some private pictures.
The first album I ever bought, I'm not kidding, it was Funky Melody in 1994. I cannot believe that. Yeah, the one where he's
That
laying
guy
down
is
on the
a cool
beach.
cat.
Yeah. Funky Melody, man.
So at first
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him because I was used to him, being in his Pontiac with his cool hair.
Yeah,
and he
of course.
came on stage and he had the biggest pop belly. And I was like, "Who the hell's that?"
Yeah.
But the ladies
Then he
love
started
him.
singing. I was like, "That's
my
Stevie B."
Stevie B. Where was he?
And Vaughn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
But what I was but what I was leading
Where were you leaning to?
what I was leaning to is that they had all these small shipping containers 10 by 10 and they could carry them in, they could roll them out.
Yeah.
They were easy to move. At 10 by 10, you
Yeah.
can move them easy.
Oh, yeah.
A
Easy.
backhoe can pick them up, a skid steer can pick
Yeah,
them
that's
up.
basically the size. This one is 9 foot wide by 10'9" long.
Okay.
And then I think the height is just under 10 feet, like you said.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's basically a 2-man operation to assemble it. It's really, really interesting. So
All right.
I just like the fact that these homeowners in Toronto, they've got an interesting homemade business kind of thing. And then they wanted to be conscious of everything. So they first looked at shipping containers, and then they found this Bunky Co. company, which is out of Aurora.
Really neat. Okay.
I'm supposed to be going up there to check out the actual factory and check out the assembly of this thing.
Wow, okay.
Hopefully, I do get the job, and they're letting me. The homeowners are very cool. They're letting me feature everything online, so
that's
that'll be
awesome.
really cool. But
Yeah,
I've always been
I love
fascinated
it.
by shipping containers as well too. So
Yeah.
I wanted to tackle something. I know that I saw something recently. It's got to be Europe. I don't know
Okay.
exactly where I saw someone take. They put, I'm going to guess, 7 or 8 shipping containers on a 45 bias into the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically some of the units, the doors were removed and they acted like skylights.
Oh, okay.
So they were dropping
Yep.
it into the center of it. And it actually was, and they were all painted white.
That's really cool.
And it looked really, and it still looked like a shipping container, but
Yep.
it was just, it was design wise, the way they put it all together, it was almost like petals.
Yeah.
And then there was a center point, and that's where the main part of the structure was.
Right.
But you had all this light pouring in down
cool.
the length of the shipping container. So I
That's
think
really
that
cool.
you're right. I think that if you could start getting past the point of the shape of the shipping container
Yeah.
and start becoming creative with it, make it more personal for you, you could start creating certain,
Yeah.
structures that are really pleasing to everybody.
Yeah, all the pictures that I have, like I do snap the pictures that I like and I put them to my archive and then I use them up for ammunition later on to build something. One of the coolest master bedrooms I've ever seen was in a shipping container.
Okay.
And the guy had put like an 8 by 8 skylight right over his master bedroom bed.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful view to be able to be up north in your master bedroom
that's
looking
nice.
up.
Yeah.
But even more, what I like about
Nice.
shipping containers and downsizing your life is I find that dark colors and small spaces are so warm.
Yes.
Like there's a warm feeling about tight spaces.
Yeah, earth tones, and you kind of do it in the right way, and you just have the right setting, and you're good to go. So-
Because
wanna
you were
build
talking
one.
about enjoying them, but you can really enjoy these shipping
Let's build one.
containers.
You want to build one? Let's build one.
Let's
I wanna
we
build
can empty
something.
one of
I'm
mine
down.
right now, and we can
No,
start
I
with
don't
that.
want- I don't want
I
one of
got-
yours.
I'll design it, and I'll make sure it looks nice. So,
Now I do have a couple questions about
Sure.
modular.
That's it too.
No. I got lots. I don't think we have enough time today.
no problem.
I've always been concerned about thermal loss. When you take walls that are already pre-built, insulated, wires already run, I'm always worried about how do you connect those wires? How do you connect that plumbing? And how do you prevent air transfer or air movement between the corners? Like
Okay.
it's always been one of my concerns, like, does it really work? When
Yeah.
I'm a stick frame builder. It doesn't matter if it's out of metal or wood. I love metal better. If I get to wood, I'm always worried about just taking walls, dropping them and screwing them together, lagging them together. How are they connected? And is that a myth?
It is a bit of a myth if it's done in the stitch line method. Basically, what it is you have your two containers, you have your exterior walls, then you have your middle container, which acts as essentially your center wall, and then you have your notches on either way, and then you have actually points where that are pre-notched as well, where your main wiring goes through, where your ducts connect, where all of the material basically, that's your stitch line servicing area. That gets connected on site. And then you have your actual stitch line. So you move it about an inch and a half apart, usually is what it does. And then they have these interlocking connections that they use right now with any ships now. And they connect all of them together. It looks like two hooks, and then you screw them together. You have your stitch line where you actually fill it in with some spray foam or however north you are. And then on the exterior, you just finish off your stitch line cladding, and because it's already notched. That's why you notch it at 12 inches either way for your finishes, inside and out. But everything's already insulated and done. And then in the crack, you fill in the crack, and then depending on what kind of exterior you're using, that holds enough R value.
What's your favorite? What's your go-to so far? Like, out of all the ones you're building, what do you keep going to?
For the commercial grade, I like to go with either rolled metal siding is nice, because it's easier to work with, and you do that. That I've seen the most of. And then the other one is smart paneling.
What's that?
So smart paneling is essentially it's like a thicker siding that's kind of like an MDF type of material. It's weather treated, and then you can paint right over it whatever color that you want.
Oh, okay.
So you can use smart paneling as a nice
Vertically
one.
applied? Is that?
Yeah, horizontally, vertically, however you want the look of it to be.
Got it.
And then on the roof, you always go with your standard rolled out white membrane. That's what I've used, and that's what's with the stick belt stuff. With a container, you don't necessarily need that, but if you're cladding the outside, you would at that point. And then you just have that over, and then you have an extra 12 inches that kind of flap up and overlap each other both ways. So that seals up your roof line on the roof, and then it's all sealed up. And your R value and your heat loss is going to be minimal, just because you have exterior foam and you have bat on the inside, and you got your drywall and everything. Or you can do whatever finishes that you want. You can do your 5 mil covering, however you want to do it, but it has to be the code. So that's what I found. So that's kind of a myth where people, I've seen that before. It's like, well, on the stitch lines, you're going to lose it. No, not really. If you size your heating unit or your heating source properly, I've never had a big issue from ones that I've seen.
That's good to hear. One thing I did want to mention for some of the people that don't know enough about wood is that MDF, most people are used to medium density. When you mentioned the aqua board, which is MDF, I just want a couple of listeners to know that there's MDF that is 100% waterproof.
Yes.
You can saturate it in water. It will not swell.
Exterior
it does not
application.
behave the same way. There's like 3 or 4 different types of MDF.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways, and that's a good thing about the containers. You can cover it with whatever you want to cover it with.
The big question for me is, how do you like working with contractors? What are the problems that you're having? Shipping containers have been around for a long time,
Yes.
but everyone's pretty new at doing this here.
Yeah.
So what are the problems you're having, and what do you need to change with contractors building these for you?
Well, the main thing is the contractor essentially would come in at the install phase, and then 9 times out of 10 of the bigger guys, they have their guys working full-time in the plant. It's like you're working in an automotive factory, essentially, because the contractors come in, they build it inside the plant, and the plant is certified. So their job site is inside for most of the job, and they only install on site. Right away, the contractors are a little happier because they can be in the middle of January
Elements.
in their t-shirt,
Yeah.
and they're inside, and they're building, they're doing their thing. But the thing is what I've found is that I've never really had a huge issue because I've been involved more in the step-by-step process of it being built. It's not a big issue because if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, I make the adjustment if it's feasible. Listen to what the contractors are saying, but the ones that I found where the contractors have an issue is when they don't know who's building the unit. They give them they say, okay, here's the recommended elevations for your blocking, and you survey it a certain way. And then one's not fitting exactly quite right, or one's not, and then they try to figure out what's going on with it, and they work what's there. And then then it gets frustrating for them. I've always had a good experience with contractors. Once they look at it and they've done 1 or 2 of them, then they get a good idea about it, and then they start to really get a hang for it.
Are they embracing it, or are they kind of dismissing it?
50-50.
50-50,
in terms of about saves money or not. Because the reason why they have that is because when I talk to them, they're not as much as saying, well, okay, well, it's not too bad. Because I'm being honest about it in terms of how much saving. Because there's a lot of salespeople. I sold these units to for about 4 years for a company up north. And yeah, so the other salespeople would bid on a job, and they're like, oh, you get a 40% savings, 70% savings, and they go off of the off-the-shelf figures. Come in, I'm like, well, no, you save about 15% in this way. You save about 17%.
But I don't think a modular shipping container build, the sales pitch is in the monetary.
No.
I don't think it is. I think it's more what you both said earlier today, where it's about how you want to be as a homeowner, right? If you want to be conscious of the environment and the footprint and all this other stuff, because I agree with Carlito, like we don't need 5,000 square foot homes for a family of 4. You don't need to do that, right? So I could see why these shipping containers started in Europe, because people live more sensibly there.
Yes.
They're not greedy with their surroundings. They just basically... They build for what they need. They don't
Absolutely.
build for excess. Right here in North America, we're the other way around, which is unfortunate. But I mean, it's great to hear that shipping containers are a 10, 15 point, reduction in cost. But
There could be more, but
it
that's
could
what
be,
I've seen.
it's in and around that. But I think if you want to go that route, I think you are going it because of the personal and creative side of it.
Yeah, and that's why I liked it and why I ran with it. I still do, like my company still does standard building permit and engineering with that. Like we just did a tapas grill in Bowmanville and did a car dealership in London. So we still do that, but now, but we always had this as an alternative. And I ended up just kind of spearheading it and doing it full time now.
Wow.
I'm sticking with that, and then the other people at the office do the rest of the standard stuff. But it's good to have that option.
Outside your business partners,
Yes.
you do take on, say like my friends are going to be listening to this right now,
Sure.
and a lot of them are interested in shipping containers.
okay.
They don't want to deal with a complete finished product. Like I do know a lot of people that don't have the money right away to get into building something and having
Sure.
it just done. Can you deal with them and get the permits done and the surveys and everything? Is it the same price as building a house? I know you're a designer, but that just means architect, really?
Yeah, architecture,
That's what an architect
engineering.
is,
Yeah,
right?
architecture, engineering, structural engineering. We do the whole package. MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We do the whole drawing package for the unit. So we would do that. We would get them the permit and do it for a year. And one of the things that people do is they either build it in stages or they get a base building. So what a base building is that it's finished with all your rough-ins and primer. It's primed on the inside, and then your exterior cladding is done. And then your finishes you can do later. The finishes I found were your highest cost if you want to get it done in the plant with certain units, with a lot of units. So they have kitchens built in and all that. If you want to do it, which is why I offered when I was doing sales, I offered a base building, which brought it down probably about $30 to $40 a square foot for the traditional.
Wow.
Yeah, for the finishes, because you got to think about it. It's like anything
I haven't
else.
heard that number in a long time.
Yeah. So, the reason being is because you got to think about it. Somebody's bringing in a kit. You say, hey, listen, I want this thing fully finished, and then come on site and put it together. Okay, great. Well, he's going to order a kitchen. He's going to put markup on it. He's going to order this, put markup on it, just like anything else. So when you say, I'll give you a base building, and then everything's ready for you to just start painting it and putting in your kitchen the way you like it and everything that you want to like it, it's going to take longer to do. Your savings, yes, you're saving a bulk of your, like 60% of your build by having it at that point. Then the other 40% you would finish it at your leisure, kind of like how you want to do it. You can do it in that perspective too. I saw that more with the wood frame stuff and with shipping container stuff. Collapsible units are simple, so like they're more.
Is it worth mixing?
like base building with?
It is though. I've seen a lot of this happening.
worth it? Yeah?
Yeah,
Could be.
it's really cool.
Yeah, it could be. It is.
Have you gone down? Have you had a client that has
Yes.
done that yet?
Yep.
Building a traditional concrete foundation to begin with, and then you're mixing the first floor or the second floor?
Second floor of the addition.
Second floor of the addition.
And in the rear one and I've done one on the top.
Wow.
So yeah. So the good thing about these things, actually home additions too, and mixing the two, is that if you're doing an addition, you only disrupt the house for 2 to 3 weeks as opposed to 3 to 4 months.
Or
And you
longer.
or even longer with
Yeah.
with additions. So when you're going in, and that's if you're going up top. If you're going in the back, it's even less. Because all they got to do is once they have everything done and your foundation's laid and all that, you don't open up your wall until essentially everything's done. And then
It kind of makes sense, huh?
What scares me right now, and it keeps coming to my thought, like
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about money, and I'm always trying to build, and everybody wants to flip houses, everyone wants to build houses. There's a lot of money in real estate
Sure.
and building. There's
Sure.
no doubt about it. There always will be. One thing I'm worried about is, does a bank or a mortgage company, do they recognize it as a home? Can you get a mortgage? Like, what I'm afraid of is that a lot of the people that you're dealing with are already well off. They've saved a lot of money and they can do this cash. So they're able to do whatever they want. Is it feasible for someone that's, say, 30 years old and just figuring it out and wanting something like this built? Someone severed a piece of property out of their family and they wanted to build a home. Would you be able to get a mortgage to build this home?
Yes, if you're using a traditional foundation for it. If it's on a block foundation with the duckbills, it's deemed as a temporary structure. I don't know what the mortgage criteria are for that, but for this, as far as I know, I've dealt with people who have gotten the mortgages on it, but
That's great to hear.
They did it with the standard, because all you're doing essentially is you go through the same permit process if you were to do it for that purpose. Along with the architect's drawings that we do, we also submit a secondary set of drawings of this is how we're building the structure. And it has a CSA number once it's delivered to site. So it's already been certified by preemptive body, and then the city comes in and they inspect it for what's been done on site. And they have all that. So it goes through the exact same channels and parameters as any home that you would do. You go, you get your permit, you do all these things, and then you proceed. And then you would get a mortgage on that, because it's just an alternative method of building something. That's the best way that I'm trying.
Because you still have to follow the building.
You still have to follow building policies.
Right?
CSA can be actually a little tighter with their policies at times than the OBC can. So you have to really do it in a way where it's done properly, and then that's when the city would take that and essentially take it seriously.
Are your drawings actually showing the shipping containers?
Yes.
You guys are drawing them out.
That's a great point.
In the placement of where they are, and
Yes.
then you're actually also
Structural.
noting all the point.
Yes.
Sorry.
You know what I'm talking about. You're actually showing all the point loads.
Yes.
And so, because you got to transfer. So if it's on the second story, you're showing the shipping container, how it's cut out or whatever, and it's connected to another one, and then you're showing all the point loads for every single one.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
I've never seen that. That's
what
pretty
is the
interesting.
load? I see these things on ships. I just saw like a massive ship that was like 500 football fields, stacked 30 high in shipping containers, and it smashed into another one.
Yeah, that was
and these
probably-
things were but these things were stacked like 20
Way up.
high.
Yeah.
That was probably
they
a
go way
Michael
up.
Bay movie, okay?
No, this is for real.
They go way up. Like going up isn't an issue with them really that I found, but like I said, I try to keep it below 3 stories. I don't like to go higher than that. That's just my personal thing. I'm sure there's ways to do it, but it just comes down to a monetary thing. But you can go way up with it. You can go.
So even if you're cutting out certain containers, certain sections of it, you could still stack other ones on top of it, because the cubular or whatever frame is what's really taking the structural load.
Yes, about 90% of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Up to
90.
90%. Well, don't quote me on that, but a majority of it is from that exterior. You don't want to mess with that, and you don't want to take out too much unless you follow the right steps in doing it, because you might get bowing and things like that if it's
From heat.
From heat and using the blowtorch and all that. It can kind of warp it at certain times. So when you go to fit it together, you might get a little bit of unevenness in the floor. So there's certain ways to do it and steps to do it. And on my design drawings, we show this is how the proper way to do it. So
What is the gauge on the shipping containers? I don't know anything about that.
off the top of my head, that's a good question.
It's not like a stainless steel
To me, mine looks
off the top of my head, I can't remember. I'm not
like
sure.
my panels look like they're about 3/16 to almost a quarter inch.
They're about
thick.
that. Yeah, thick. Yeah, they're pretty thick.
They're solid,
It
man.
takes a while. You need a laser torch to
A plasma cutter?
Yeah, a plasma cutter.
You can't use a grinder?
No, you
You
can.
can.
Yeah.
It'll just take a while.
a long time.
No, just a lot of blades.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it.
cut
I've seen
saw.
fab shops where they do it that way, but yeah, they got wires up and they use
Electric
plasma
cut saw, so there's no carbon footprint.
There you go. Perfect.
I am interested in to find out. You know, we're talking about you building these shipping containers off grid and on grid, and you know, stacking them 3 high, and we're talking about all these really cool things.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked about Manny's favorite: a workout gym in a shipping container.
That would be nice.
Or
Yeah.
a car garage.
That's
Have
nice
you
too.
done anything like that yet?
I've designed them, but I haven't actually done them with somebody yet, or somebody actually where they physically built it. But I've designed them before. Yeah.
Yeah, you could fit a single car in there.
Yes.
They're
you
9
could.
feet
Yeah.
wide.
They're 8 feet. 8 feet wide.
8 feet wide.
Yeah.
So slim, but you can fit that, and then you get 8 feet
Ducati.
wide. Yeah.
He's got a monster he wants to put in there.
No, I do not, man.
Have you done decks, and like how do you start waterproofing if you start putting second floors with decks on? Like I'm interested in how you would
Cantilever? How do you cantilever? Is that what you're trying to get at?
No, I'm just wondering, you know, after you stack these, I've seen a few of them staggered and left like the roof on. How do you create another area from the deck?
In terms of like you want to
Decking the shipping container?
Yeah, it's step down. You pick out certain point and loads. So essentially, what it is, if you have it's a step down, or you can offset it, and then you can kind of put a couple of posts on the one side. I've done that before, and I've seen that done before. Essentially, when you attach them this way, you attach them up and down or left to right. It's attached the same way. essentially. You can't think of it as Legos. Large Legos is the best way to describe
Lego was a huge empire.
it. Yeah.
Yes,
I think it still is. They make more money with the movies.
Yes, massive empire.
Yeah.
I don't even feel like we've kind of like we're just cutting through
Scratching the surface.
Yeah, scratching the surface of this.
Yeah.
Well, I really hope that Canada does kind of embrace this.
I hope so,
I don't
too.
know how does the U.S. take it. I don't.
Huge in the U.S.
Huge in the U.S.
Huge. I was in Florida, and they did a hotel like this.
A
In
hotel.
Miami. Yeah, they're like a Motel 6 kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Insane. It's very big in the States.
So they are embracing it.
Big time. Yeah. They've been doing it for a while. Yeah. Yeah. Well, more population, right? They're 360
10
million or
times.
something. Yeah, 10 times to us. So
What could make it easier for what you're doing or for the future?
doing more of these things, doing more podcasts, getting the word out, and actually like having a set off the shelf kind of solution for it, where it can be refined and honed, and that way try tested and true kind of thing. This is just my own path that I found. Doing more of it, and so that way, the city hall and the permit department, all those people will know more about it, and they'll want to push it, not push it more, but will have
Accept
less.
it.
Accept it more. Because
Yeah.
the more and more they see, the more and more like okay, and they
course.
know it gets refined and done more and done more. But what I've seen so far, it's been positive, but it's just they don't see a lot of it. That's the only thing.
Do the city inspectors understand it, or do they fight you on it?
They fight at times.
Yeah.
At times, yeah.
Have you approached Habitat?
Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm planning to because one of the things I work with also a company is called Hoarding for Humanity.
I love it.
They work with Habitat. They're out of Pickering. They're an awesome company. The owner is a gentleman named Norm. He's a great guy. What they do is they do the hoarding for retails. They're in 20 malls. And what they do is when they're done, they take the stuff down and they donate the material to Habitat.
Nice.
So I wanted to devise something where I can approach them, but at the current time, I'm not working with them. But I would like to, in the future, if I have something that someday that would
I've
be
always
good
wanted to
benefit
do a Habitat job, but if you wanted to do one in Toronto, the wait list is like 2-3 years.
from. Really,
It's
So
insane to
long.
get on a job site, right? So I don't know where, but one day I'd like to. You've never done a Habitat, have you?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
I want to do one. I want to give up my time.
I'm not saying anything bad about that
I'm not
organization
saying- I'm
or
not
any
saying
other
anything.
organization like that. If I'm going to donate my time, I want to make sure that no one is making money. 100% of everything is going to
I
the
thought
people.
that's what it was like.
I think there's some overhead costs that people get paid out for, and that's always been just one of my pet peeve things,
Yeah.
That's just when they build a house for recreation.
Or just stick you in a small 10 by 10 shipping container and
That's
send you on the ocean.
Well, whatever we can do here to help, because I
appreciate it,
definitely,
man.
I know Carlito and myself,
Yeah.
we're both interested in trying to tackle one of these one day. We want
Give me a
to.
call.
I want to. I'm excited about that other project because I've always been fascinated about these kinds of new structures. We've done stick framing before. We've done traditional framing. I want to. We talk to people outside of North America because we want to know what they're doing. Fascinating. You telling us a story about Lebanon as well too.
Yeah.
Like I want to know more about that. I want to learn
Sure.
more about because that's how you contribute. You get back to the industry, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
and
what
that
the
was
whole
the big
objective-
thing with me. Yeah, because I've been going there since I was a kid, and when I saw that, I connected with it in a whole different way. Because I've also in 2010 I've been to Damascus. It was one of the most amazing cities I've ever visited in my life. And when all this stuff happened, and I just politics aside and all that, I didn't really pay attention to any of that, but I just saw how they were living and the living conditions and what inspired me is what they did with what they had. They literally
Yes.
made like a small little town made out of whatever you want. They had things made out of barrels. They had things made out of, and they got really inventive with it. And that kind of inspired me. I said, well, I have this education. We're fortunate to be, first generation Canadian in Canada. I said, well, this could be a way of giving back in a way of doing that. So what do I have? I have my knowledge. I have my experience. I'm not wealthy by any stretch of the means of the imagination, but I'm a lot better than what I saw. And that's what opened my eyes. And I'm like, okay, what can I do? And then I started, then just rolled from there. And then I met Robbie along the way. And he's like, oh, yeah, I just came back from Timisoara. I was like, okay, what are you doing there? And then we kind of went from there. So, that's the big thing is we want to kind of do that too. And that's one of the things I want to push more and more of is that kind of stuff. So.
I think it's important. I think it's extremely important to give back.
Sure.
Whatever you can give back and educate because you don't know who might, the same way you just met Robbie, you don't know who you might cross paths with.
No.
That might take an idea that you can't think about moving any further, and they might take it a lot further. And that's what's really key here, right?
Yeah,
you want
appreciate
that. So if you could pass on the knowledge to them, then great. And then they do something with it.
And you guys
So-
can have me back on here anytime.
For sure.
Oh, we got lots.
Yeah,
We're just
I had
talking
a
about
great
shipping
time.
containers, but I really wanted to get into other things, like some diplomatic talk about, normal construction and, how to deal with engineers and architect, redlining costs and so on. There's so many things I want to talk about because everyone always tries to tippy toe and be proper. And me and Manny, we really like it. We want to talk that everyone does at home or at the bar, and they don't want to talk about it in public. That's what we want to talk about because those are the real, those are the true stories, right?
Yeah,
the
of
real
course.
stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did want to ask you one last question before Manny kicks me out.
As much as you want.
Can you make a shipping container that's like? Can you get it made the same structural frame, but larger? Like say 20 by 15. Could you do something like that?
When you get into something that size, it's not worth getting and doing it like a shipping container. What you do is you use an external skeleton, I call it, linked together, and then you just insert it with what you're trying to insert it with. So it becomes like a two-piece thing. Doing just a large shipping container, I'm sure it can be done, but I don't know. I haven't seen it.
What is the largest shipping container that you know of so far?
That I know of so far, 8 foot by 50 footers, 52 footers, and 9.5 tall.
I got mine 52. That was the biggest delivered.
Yeah, that's about that. Because past that, well, you have you're bound to about 60 feet long for floaters and trucks and all that. So it's 8
transport.
feet wide.
It's all about transport, right?
12 feet's your maximum width, and then if you go past 12 feet, you can go 12 to 14. But then you need a police escort.
Yeah.
And just to go through Toronto on the 401, do you know how much it costs for a police escort?
I don't even want to know.
$850, I think, per, just to drive through that little stretch.
Wow.
So if you have 5 of them, 850,
Wow.
850, yeah.
Or you could just do it legally and have about 100 of them.
Or just when they pull you over, just go, what?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm a Croatian. I don't know the big English.
Well, you want to hear something funny? It was a funny story. Somebody actually tried doing it, and they were down on, like St. Clair and Caledonia area. You got that bridge
Stockyards.
thing. Yeah, Stockard, you got the bridge thing there.
Yeah.
So somebody was trying to get one of the units under that, and it was too tall. And they let the air out of the tires of the whole truck, and they tried getting under, and they still couldn't get under. And that's when the cops got involved and all that kind of stuff. This is years ago. I was
King Street was famous for that. King, where Liberty Village was.
Really?
Yeah.
There was that one bridge there that was always tight, and the trailers would always go down and lock it up, man.
Yeah.
And let the tires out, and then
Let it go.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's still too
It was
tall.
ridiculous, right?
So there's the height restrictions and width restrictions and length restrictions.
Contact information again. So your website.
www.acadmodular.com and Adnan at acadmodular.com. You can find me, and by all means, look forward to doing more of these and talking to people about
For
this.
sure. So if anybody's got any more questions to ask that we didn't ask questions about,
Ask away.
it's time for the Green Book.
So it's time for Green Book. Do 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 do. Green Book time.
So brought to you by Precious, apparently.
So last week we talked about helmets out of the Green Book. Listen, it's mandatory. We're talking to architect engineer here. It's mandatory to have your Green Book on site.
Yes.
You have to have a job box. You have to have your first aid.
Yes,
So
correct.
we're basically talking about fines for not wearing proper equipment. So last week we talked about helmets and boots.
Yes.
I'm looking under section 112. It's a $250 fine for any construction worker. And it basically says, worker failing to wear adequate eye protection while using any tools is $250. It's $195 not for having any glasses. So you're supposed to wear safety glasses all day at work, and $250 while you're using it.
So even if you're a painter,
Think about it. Paint goes in your eye. It's a chemical.
True.
What you need an eye wash station. So now you need to wash all that out with silica.
do you agree with this, Manny? No.
No, you may not agree with it, but it's happening a lot.
Okay, so what's the posted speed limit?
that depends on your feet.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to get at, right?
Okay, so here's a perfect example. One day we just had poured some some self-leveler over top of a radiant heat floor. So
Right.
we had built a 3-story concrete home. Every floor had radiant heat. So we poured some concrete, and there was something had happened. Either it was leaking or there was a break somewhere. So we brought out our detector, found where the break was. My boss asked me, he said, "Hey man, drill a hole in there." Me not second guessing it. I grabbed the drill and we make a spot, marker it, and I start drilling, and all that glucose sprayed me in the eyes. Thank God it was glucose. It could have been some antifreeze, and I could have been blind. So it's just as simple as you're just doing daily work. If you don't practice and keep those habits of wearing glasses, Manny.
Yeah.
Manny hates glasses.
No, it's not that I just don't think that you need safety goggles for every single detail
Of
a job
true.
site.
Yeah,
I get the green book. I get the rules. Trust me, I get all that stuff.
Facts are facts. It's a 2019 Green Book, and it states $195 for not having glasses on at a construction site, and then it goes into $250 fines for working with tools.
Okay, so that technically means, you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, when that inspector shows up on your site,
he has to have glasses on.
has to have glasses on,
Yeah.
has to have everything on. And if they don't have it, then what? Are they going to get fined?
I've never seen that happen.
They've always walked on site with glasses on and everything on?
Okay, so what I do see...
Hard hat, yes. Safety boots,
So
yes.
what I do see is the first thing that happens is we have a meeting every morning, and you're supposed to, with your employees or your employer, and basically talk about wearing the helmet, the glasses, and then you get the guys to sign off. You get a written piece of paper that these are the topics you talked about, the weather, everyone signs off. That protects the company and the supervisor that you had that talk, that you educated the guys that day. It's up to them as adults.
I know, but the company can still get fined.
But the point is that when they see a white helmet come on,
Well, here's
or
the
they
thing.
see
Every single inspector that I've seen come on my job site has walked on with the helmet under his arm. Only once or twice I've seen an inspector show up on site with it on his head. And I'll tell you this
True.
too. I'll tell you this. Every single inspector that's walked on my site, on any site of mine, not one of them ever had safety goggles.
Okay, but Manny,
Me
Not
too.
once.
but
Yeah,
how
same here.
about this, Manny? When I came to your site, I was wearing a helmet. I had you gave me beautiful gloves, but I always wear gloves. I always wear glasses. I'm wearing my safety glasses right now while we're talking.
They're really cool. They're very
Yeah,
stylish.
prescription
I like them.
glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
nice.
they're safety glasses, and
Yes.
I wear them from work, and sometimes I forget I even have them on. But I'm protected at all times. Thank
Sure.
God. If you look at my glasses, you can see chips and scratches from
Yeah,
pieces
yeah.
of metal. And anyways,
Yeah.
how about if that guy gets hurt? One of the guys upstairs, one of the painters that's wearing his running shoes, kicks over a can. That can goes flying off the second floor, lands on this guy's head. Now he's
Yeah.
got paint in his eyes. He's got a ding in his head. It's sliced open. Who's responsible? You are, because you
I get
never
it.
got him to sign the paper.
I get it. Trust me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
it.
And
But
the problem is, it is a cash grab, but it's also there for our safety.
thank you.
Yeah,
that's
that's
all I
true.
wanted to
Yeah.
hear.
That's true.
That's all I wanted to hear. All right. I think we got to get back on track.
Sorry.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you very much for such a great podcast and enlightening
Oh,
us
thank
with
you,
the
man.
whole. Oh, we're going to get out of here. Thank you very much, man. So,
Thank
anybody
you.
else got any questions, please give him a holler. Reach out to us. We'll
Thanks for
forward
having
every
me, man.
messages to him. We're fascinated by modular building. We want to see more people be fascinated by it. Carlito, get us out of here, man. Get us out of here.
You know what? Today it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be the 519 London, baby. Straight out of TL416.
There we go.
Yeah. Construction live.